today is integrity. That's why I wanted to be sure you were done. In his book, The Power of the I Am Presence, Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote, "The I Am is a universal spirit. The identity of our person, the integrity of our soul, the immortality of our spirit, a deathless, birthless, changeless principle indwelling in our own soul." Reverend Dr. Alexander wrote, "There is something within you, me, and every being on the planet that does not change. That thing is the integrity of our soul. God only wants one thing for you, to embrace your wholeness. And that is why the integrity of your soul is immovable. It is an unchanging presence awaiting discovery and activation through your thoughts, choices, and experiences." How awesome is that? I didn't make that up, that's here. And Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, wrote, "Why separate your spiritual life and your practical life? To an integral being, there is no such distinction." Let us now affirm the truth of integrity together with conviction. I walk the path of integrity. I listen deeply within, aligning with the perfection and wholeness of God, letting the light of God illuminate my path and make straight the way before me. I see a great vision of my life coming into view.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Beautifully read. Beautiful. Integrity. What a great topic, right? For the whole month. Integrity. When I think of integrity, I think of the great spiritual masters of all time. And I also think of, therefore, this great spiritual masters that are behind the New Thought movement. And so what came to mind to me, or who came to mind to me, is one of really the founders of New Thought, which is Emma Curtis Hopkins. Emma Curtis Hopkins. How many of you have even heard of Emma Curtis Hopkins? All right. So Emma Curtis Hopkins, wow. What a giant, what a spiritual giant, full of integrity. You know, when you think about her life, she was born back in the 1800s, and her lifespan went through 1925. And during that time, this woman walked the path of integrity. She accomplished things that, for in those days, that women just didn't normally accomplish. And why? Because she had a deep spiritual connection with Source, and she had actually developed what many call unitive consciousness or oneness consciousness, where the human and the divine became so deeply merged that everything that flowed from her came directly from that I am presence that we were just talking about. Everything that flowed from her. So she was a great contributor to New Thought, as I mentioned. One of her first moments of standing in her integrity came when, in the early 1880s, when she was a student of Mary Baker Eddy, who was the one who founded Christian Science. And Mary Baker Eddy and she got into a discussion because Emma was really into studying the world religions. She was quite a scholar. She, as well as a mystic, she studied all the world religions, all the great sacred texts, and she was really interested in bringing that, the truths that run through it, which is what we're all about here, to show how everything really fit together. And Baker Eddy was just not into that. Mary Baker Eddy insisted that the truth was revealed only to her, and that was final. So,
Wow.
so what Emma decided to do then, since she believed that truth could be found in anyone, she felt out of integrity she had to leave. And this was, and she had been the editor of the Christian Science Monitor. She had been really deeply involved in that movement, but she knew she had to leave because it wasn't in alignment. So what she did then is she established her own theological school in Chicago. She taught over 50,000, one person, 50,000 students during her career. 50,000. And she ordained many, many women as well as men into the ministry. And some of her students are some of the greatest known founders of all of the various aspects or denominations, maybe you could call it, of New Thought. The founders of divine science, who were women. The Home of Truth, who were women. Religious Science, who was Ernest Holmes. That's what we're familiar with. And Unity, which was the Fillmores. He was also Emily Cady was one of his students who is very well known in the Unity movement. And her organization, which was called the Hopkins Metaphysical Association, went on to establish many study groups and many branches, not only throughout the entire United States, California all the way to Maine, but also in Europe. And in 1918, she was voted the honorary president of the International New Thought Alliance. And here's the thing, this is where her integrity just continued to unfold. Since she believed that God is all, the radiance of God is all, she demonstrated that with her students. She saw all of her students as her equals, and she taught her students that the lessons that I am offering you are simply to help you remember what you already know in the heart of your soul from your own inner wisdom. She acknowledged the spiritual truth that it was already present in them and that could be recognized and acknowledged. And I know for myself, when I first came into contact with New Thought, that it resonated. So to me, that's what she was talking about. We know when we hear spiritual truth because it resonates. We can feel it. She also challenged her students to live with integrity. In other words, she challenged them to train their minds to stay focused on truth. She challenged them to prove the truth principles in their lives, to prove it, to practice it and to prove it, not just to talk about it. And again, the ultimate way that she demonstrated her integrity was with her own relationship with the divine, that unitive consciousness, where the margins between the human self and the divine are, what would you say, non-existent, where the two are truly one. So integrity. This is a hot topic in this day and age, isn't it? As we tune into TV, as we tune in to the newspaper or whatever else, and we see what appears to be the lack of integrity among some of the major players on the world stage, we can really start wondering about what's going on. And here's what I believe is going on. I'm going to go back to how I believe spirit works. is that when something is up in our face, right, it's really asking us to look within ourselves and to see, where am I out of integrity with who I am in truth? Where am I out of integrity? So that's what the focus is today, is for us to really look at how we can come back into alignment with who we are in truth. Integrity actually means, this is the dictionary definition, the state of being whole and undivided. The state of being whole and undivided. New Thought, Science of Mind is really teaching this. I mean, we've just heard through the introduction, through the readings, that wholeness, that principle of wholeness is what we keep coming back to. In this thing called life, Ernest Holmes writes about it in this way. He said, life is intelligent. It responds to us. We happen to believe it's a spiritual presence, everywhere, equally distributed, within us and all around us and everywhere else. This life, call it God or whatever you choose, is something present with us and in us, and out of whose essence all things are made, within whose creative imagination all things are formed, and by whose immutable laws all things are held in place. This is self-evident. We couldn't be here if these things weren't true. So this is such a beautiful statement of the wholeness of the divine, of God, of spirit, of presence, and the integrity, therefore, of the universe, which is made out of that wholeness. Isn't that beautiful? And since God is equally present in and as all creation, each of us is whole in essence, part of the great integrity of all life. And so we, through our freedom of choice, have the opportunity to live in integrity from that wholeness or not, and experience the consequences. Integrity also comes from the root word integrate. So I want to look at it from this other direction too, which means to combine one thing with another so that they become whole. So what do we combine? What do we combine to make whole? It's very simple. It's the combination of the human self and the divine self as one. The combination of every aspect of our lives so that everything pours out of it as from this one place. So it means that no matter where we are, whether we're here with spiritual community, whether we are stuck in gridlock traffic, whether we are in a disagreement with another person, whether we are watching something on TV that displeases us, whatever it might be, that we are the same person. So that's the thing to look at. How do we show up no matter who we're with and no matter what the situation is? Are we showing up as that unitive presence of the divine and the human? Or is our life splintered? In The Inward Journey, which is our source book this month by Howard Thurman, he calls it The Inward Journey, The Quest for God. He said that living in integrity is living our lives consciously in God's presence. It's about awareness. It's about bringing that awareness into everything. And he says it's also about exposing to the God of our own being our motives, our dreams, our desires, and even our errors in order to make wise choices. And so out of this awareness, this willingness to practice self-reflection, flows acts of integrity. And so, again, are we the same person in all circumstances? And if we are inconsistent in our words, in our thoughts, and in our actions, depending on where we are and who we're with, it's because of spiritual amnesia. So we don't want to lay a guilt trip on ourselves. This is what I love about New Thought. It's not about a guilt trip. It's about realizing we have fallen temporarily asleep. Spiritual amnesia. We've forgotten for a moment who we are in truth. And the beauty of this is that when we're aware of it, we can just course correct and move back into the direction that we choose. So again, it's about continuing to remember who we are in truth. We can call it the sacred self, the God self, the true self, whatever, the authentic self. But that true self, that presence, that unified human and divine is an individuation, listen to this, of God's omnipresence. An individuation of God's omnipresence, living in human skin, our earth suits. So congruency now really fits into all of this. I love this word congruency because when we're in spiritual amnesia, we're out of congruency with who we are in truth. So congruency then, listen to this definition, the arrangement of all the parts of the whole in such a way that all are supported and strengthened. So it is the demonstration of integrity when our behavior in all aspects of our lives is congruent with who we are. And so where does strength and support come in? Well, when we're in congruence, when our life shows up that way, then we have what's called strength of character. We have a sense of inner strength that I can get through anything. Because we're living from a place of the strength of God. The strength of God. And that thing when we say, oh, I just wish I had some support in my life, the support that we desire happens through this unitive consciousness, this merging of the human and divine. Because all the support we could ever need or desire is where? Within us, as our very own God presence. All the guidance we need, all the resources, and the creative potential, all the ideas that can then become part of our lives. So integrity and congruency and wholeness, they all sort of fit together, don't they? And when we live from that place, then we also have an ability to stand up for what we believe in, even when we are being asked to do something that is not in integrity with who we are. So I'd like to share with you a story that is an ancient teaching. Late one night, an aged and wise teacher took his students into the village, saying, I am old and helpless, and I have no money. Go and follow people who are walking alone. Pull them into a dark corner. This is a master teacher saying this, right? And take their money. Don't harm them, but take their money. And to this, all of the students started nodding their heads. They were agreeing. They were readily agreeing with it, except for one. And this one student said, Master, there is never a time when no one will see me, because my divine self is always observing what I do. To this, the master shouted with joy, At last, there is one among you who knows about himself. Let this be a lesson by which you all live your entire lives. So integrity, the willingness to stand in truth, the truth of what we believe. So here's the thing is in a splintered state, when we are listening to the conditioned mind, or some people would call it the human ego, the conditioned mind, there will be a tendency to do that which is meeting the approval of others, right? But when we are in a state of conscious union with our true selves, as that student was, then we're able to stand in that truth even if we are disapproved of. Because we know that our divine self, our observer self, is watching, and we know that there is a spiritual law that responds to our choices. And therefore, we know that there are consequences that we may not want if we go against what is our truth, what it is that we believe in. So, living the truth of our spiritual integrity then means to be consciously aware 24/7 of who we are in truth, our spiritual truth. It's combining every aspect of our lives together from this one place of our spiritual truth, so that we're the same person whether we're in traffic, whether we're with our beloved, whether we are with our spiritual community, no matter where we are. And of course, to me, and I think you would agree, that means being the presence of love. And Howard Thurman writes this. He said, "Love is one of the highest values and inspires giving to others. Love bypasses all your hate and all your indifference and gets through to you at your core and center." So my call to action for you this month is to live in the question of, how am I showing up in each and every aspect of my life? Am I living in the awareness of my true self, my God self? Am I aware that I am a spiritual being who's in human body here on the planet and here to be the beacon of love? And if you just want to shorten that, you can just say to yourself, what would love do? It's a very simple question. What would love do to inform all of your decisions? So I want to end with this beautiful prayer that is an adaptation from Ernest Holmes by Dr. Edward Bioun of the CSL Santa Rosa. And so let's close our eyes in prayer. Come, great and infinite mind of creation, and inspire me to do good deeds. Let your infinite wisdom make me wise. I make myself available to guidance and direction. I am available to be directed by the inner presence which prompts me to do the things that must be done. Oh, wonderful presence within me, flooding me, filling me with light, and inspiring me with love. Greater than fear is this love. It dissolves all fear. It casts out all doubt. It sets all things free. Love, like the river of light, flows through me and refreshes me with its eternal blessings. Love is fearless and strong and is mighty in its works. It fills my very being with a powerful presence. My affairs are directed by this presence of love. Within me, it knows what to do and how to do it. I do not hinder, but I let it operate in my affairs. It prospers and directs me and guides my life. My affairs are managed by love and directed by wisdom. They cannot fail to prosper and expand. Come, great and infinite mind of creation, inspire me to do great deeds. Let your infinite wisdom make me wise. I make myself available to your guidance and direction. And so it is.
And so it is.